Okay, good evening, everyone, and welcome to tonight's episode of Teen Talk Live. I am your host, Ann Dillard, and I'm just so excited to be here with you again tonight. So, as you come in, I'm going to ask you to share this video and make sure you let me know that you're here. Tonight, we're going to be talking about depression in teens. And this is a really, really important topic as we are recognizing National Suicide Awareness and Prevention Month. So, a lot of people might not want to talk about this topic, but we're going to and do that tonight. Before I get started, I want you to know that this month, Teen Talk Live is being sponsored by Joseph Dillard, and he is a financial specialist, and he's been offering financial services for over 30 years, and he is sponsoring Teen Talk Live this month. And Joseph said, I don't sell products, I provide solutions for individuals and families to help them save money, decrease their debt, protect their income, and become financially free. So check him out on xblog.com, and I'll drop his contact information after the broadcast. So again, welcome to Teen Talk Live, and tonight's topic is teens or depression in teens. And as you come in, say hello and share this video out for us. All right, so tonight I have two very special guests, and these are my colleagues, and they are here tonight to help with this conversation. So first of all, I have Ms. Tamika Carter, who is here. Hi, Tamika.
Hi, how are you?
I'm well. And then I have Monica Douglas Davis, and she's here. Hey, Monica.
Hey, how's everybody?
Good, good, good. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to give you all a chance to introduce yourselves and tell in what capacity you serve in the mental health field. So Tamika, if you go first, that'll be great.
Great. My name is Tamika Carter. I'm actually in Oklahoma City. I've been practicing here for about 10 years. My license is primarily in addictions and mental health. I treat adolescents. I treat anyone from about 6 to 65 pretty well. I am able to treat school issues as well as some family issues. So that's just a little bit about me.
Thank you. Welcome again. All right, Monica, welcome.
Hello, everybody. So my name is Monica Douglas Davis, and I am in the Snellville/Stone Mountain, Georgia area. And yes, right, Georgia's in the house. So I am a licensed professional counselor, and my practice is called CARES Counseling, which stands for Child and Adolescent Resource Education Services. I love acronyms. So at CARES, I see children, families, and a lot of youth. And we mostly work on, I would say about 30% of the kids that I see, teens, do deal with depression. And so I've been doing this first as a teacher for 11 years, and then I transitioned over as a counselor and have been doing that for the last 14 years.
Oh, wow. Okay. So, if you all are watching, we have experts in the house to talk to, and you can ask. While this is not a counseling session, you can certainly get some advice and some suggestions from them. And remember that this doesn't take the place of you seeking professional counseling, but this is such good information. Again, we're recognizing National Suicide Awareness and Prevention Month. So let's just jump right in. So what does, tell us some background, Tamika, on teen depression. What do you see, and what are some of the background information that people don't think about when it comes to teen depression?
Well, I'm going to jump right in. What I noticed most about teen depression is actually well documented in a lot of the research literature. Teen depression tends to present itself as irritability, as anger, and as other issues that are typically more akin to conduct disorder or oppositional defiant disorder. So a lot of times teens we're expecting them to manifest the sad mood, the depressed mood, the loss of interest in activities, when in fact they're doing things like taking risks or they're being defiant against authority. So, and a lot of times what we see with that is there is some issue deep down that is really linked to depression rather than actually an oppositional issue.
Right. And that's so important for us to recognize, because the thing is, we could end up trying to treat the wrong thing, right? And do more harm.
Yeah, yeah, I would definitely say so. So, with that, when we're treating depression, we are going to do a lot of different techniques and have a different almost viewpoint than when we're treating something that's an oppositional disorder, especially when it comes to advising family members or authority figures. So, if we are dealing with what's indeed depression, but we're treating it as if it's just a kid, who needs to get in order, then we're going to force that child even deeper into their depression because they're going to feel that they don't have anyone that they can trust to talk to about it without being judged as an angry or something teen. So you're invalidating some of their issues, some of their feelings there. You're invalidating some of the hurt they may be feeling or actually the anger that may be in response to being mistreated or trauma. So we have to be really careful because as therapists, we want to build that therapeutic relationship. So to misdiagnose, to misjudge early on and go down a completely opposite road could be really dangerous.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And then when I was doing research, and I do serve teens, what the research shows is that 1 in every 8 teens suffer from depression. And I mean, think about that. If 8 teens are sitting in front of you, at least one of them, that's a high percentage to me. At least one of them has depression.
That's about 4.
Yeah.
Well, no, I'm thinking that's about 4 in a classroom, right? That's 3 to 4 in every classroom.
Exactly. So imagine a classroom and this depression is presenting like oppositional defiance. And so what happens is what the teacher keeps sending them out and keep writing them up and keep suspending them, right? And nobody's looking at, oh, that child could really be depressed. That's astounding to me. So, Monica, what do you see in your child and adolescent practice?
So, it is a lot what Tamika said. I agree with. A lot of the young people I see come in are labeled by someone, society, or even the parents, as being oppositional. I think we've thrown that term around so much. It's kind of, just a catchphrase that everyone knows. Oh, my child's oppositional and they're defiant, so treat them for oppositional defiant disorder. But when you really sit down and talk to them and go beneath the layers, I think of like an onion, right? There are layers to it. And so initially on the outward layer, you might see that anger. But as you start to peel those layers back and actually talk to them, you get to really see that there's some depression. And even a lot of times, quite honestly, I have to involve the parents because they have to be upfront about their own mental health issues, because there is definitely a correlation between maybe a parent that has some depression and they may not have ever even disclosed that to the child. But at a teenage, usually they know, and they know something's wrong. Maybe if they don't know the term for it, but they know, mama's this way or daddy's this way. And so a lot of times I found that the parents, I don't want to say secretly, but maybe unknowingly, are not even admitting that they have issues, and they may have some of those same traits in their child. And so they just want to say, oh, they're being defiant, they're being disrespectful and oppositional. So we have to really deal with it in a holistic family unit type of way, and not just zero in on the child that has this problem.
That is so key, because and I love that most of us practice from a systemic standpoint, where it's not just about that child, but looking at the whole system, looking at the environment, looking at all different kinds of things that might be contributing to this child's behavior. And Tamika said, environment trauma, that might be a contributing component, which we don't, in the person, the untrained person, don't even think about that. What do you say about that, Tamika?
Well, I love what Monica said about the parental mental illness. One of my practices is to make the ACE available to my parents, the adverse childhood experiences. I make it part of my intake. So when you come in, you can fill out all your forms and your skills for your kiddo, but you also get to fill out the ACE on behalf of yourself. And it really actually happened on accident. I had parents come in and say, "Do you want me to sign it or fill this out?" And for myself. And so I'm like, well, yeah, go ahead, fill it out. And if you're uncomfortable, maybe talking to me about the things that are on there, then just give me the score. Because then that gets me in the mindset of knowing what's going on from the kiddo, some of these intergenerational traumas that we see. So what's going on from kiddo to mama to grandma and whoever else. And that's so important, as Monica was saying, because if you've got a mother and a daughter both dealing with their own mental illnesses, what are they doing? They're triggering each other all the time. And they're responding in ways that we don't know if it's part of the illness or if this is just a reaction or, and so we're almost kind of chasing our tails when we're dealing with these things. And we don't, like you said, look at it from a systematic perspective to be able to treat everyone in the family, actually.
That's amazing. Now I've done the ACE for the client, but I haven't done it. Well, I did it with one parent, and her score was like a 9. Right. And so for those of you who are not familiar with the adverse childhood experiences, it's an assessment that's done that 5 of them talks about what's happened to you personally, and 5 of them is like environmental and things that you witness. And the research shows that people having a score of 4 or more is prone to so many different lifestyle challenges, including mental illness, depression, suicide ideation, eating disorder, and shorter lifespans. So if you all want to know more about ACE, hit us up in the comment section and we'll be happy to share that. So Monica, do you use the ACE also in your practice, or what kind of resources do you use when it comes to depression and trauma?
So thank you, Tamika. I really have to say, I use the ACE, but I've never used it with my teens. So I'm gonna have to start, with the parents. I've never thought about that. I definitely am familiar with it and use it a lot with the adult clients, but it does make sense what you said, how the generational dysfunction can go on, or even we say generational curses can happen. So I like that. I make my little note to use that one. So what I do a lot of times though is, now I do work with a psychologist, since I'm not a psychologist, and I do have all of my clients get evaluated because I really want them to get the holistic view. I also have them see their pediatrician as well, because they are still children. And so I think you just need to find out all the different things that are going on. I definitely deal with the mental health aspect of it, but I want to make sure that the basic needs are met and there are no developmental delays or learning disabilities, or are they on medication, things of that nature. I need all of that information at intake. And to be honest with you, I find it sometimes to be a little bit challenging to get all that information from the parents. Maybe they've even had some testing prior, but it may be difficult for them to get it, or maybe they kind of don't even agree with it. And so they come to me kind of for like a fresh start. But I tell them, no, I need everything, because how can I make an informed decision if I don't have all the parts? It's like a puzzle. If you have a 24 piece puzzle and you only give me 19 pieces, well, I might get some of it. I'll get but there will be some major things missing. Especially say the middle part. So I try to really collaborate and work with the parents and get the other professions involved that may have access, and the schools. That is a key component. because the teachers see them on a 6-7 hour time span, per day, or there are different teachers, of course. In high school, you're talking about going from class to class, so it's not the same teacher. But again, even if you could get the, one or two teachers' input, that can tell you what's going on. And with the school, and I know, Tamika, you can speak a lot better and more on this. I like even not the core teachers, but maybe, the music teacher or the drama teacher or the media specialist, all other professionals, because again, they're seeing these children on a day-to-day basis, and they can observe things and report to us things that can be really significant in their treatment and in their treatment plan. So that's kind of what I do.
That's really, really important. And when I was running the school-based clinic, we did a CASI, a child, what is it, adolescent.
Oh,
it's a scale that
Yeah.
tests how they function.
Yes.
And try to get, and you get the teacher's input, the parents' input, and the child's input.
Yes.
I've gone to the school secretary and asked them to fill that out. Because they see that child in different capacity, right? And think about a child who is presenting signs of depression and might not want to go to class, might not spend a lot of time in class, right? They might spend a lot of time in the office.
Right.
And a lot of what I found is that when you see a lot of kids getting sent to the office or the behavioral room, the biggest thing that they're craving is connection. It's not all about behavior, it's about connection or looking for somebody to relate to. Right? What do you all say about that?
Yeah, I agree. I always say, if you want to know a kid, ask the cafeteria crew. Right there in their natural element, not in the office where they're anxious because they're getting in trouble or in class performing or whatever they may be doing. But ask the cafeteria women, they're ladies or men or whoever's there, ask them. They know, they get to see that child and they get to see them in their natural element. But that's if you have access to actually the staff at a school. So one of the things that I did want to also point or bring up, I love what you were saying, Monica, about the holistic treatment. And so I always tell people, just as a public service announcement, like if you're a clinician and you treat adolescents and you don't have a good pediatrician to refer to, because the truth is a lot of our adolescents that are above SHOT's age, they don't even have a pediatrician. They haven't, or they have one that they haven't seen since they were 7. So that's got to be, for me, number one. And I mean, my company is accredited by Joint Commission. So of course they're always on me about the medical stuff, but that is so important. And then vice versa. If you're a pediatrician and you don't have a good number of therapists or someone that you can refer to, you got to have that, because all the time we are seeing these co-occurring issues, these medical issues that cross paths with our mental health issues. And you also brought up something about when you were talking about the AIDS, you talked about some of the behavioral and the issues that go along with that. One of the really great findings that was in the study from Kaiser, I think it was done in Kaiser Permanente or Kaiser out in California. They found that these things aren't only linked to mental problems, they're linked to cardiovascular issues. They're linked to things like that. And even as we're discussing teen depression, SAMHSA has said, even if you go on their website, that a lot of times our kiddos who are between the ages of 12 and 17 who have asthma or diabetes are a lot more prone to depression. So we as clinicians, parents, anyone who's responsible, has a child in their care, we've got to be aware of how much interplay there is between, chemical issues, between trauma and all of that stuff, and how that's going to play into what we're seeing as depression in our teenagers.
That is so critical. A lot of times when we have teens with depression, we cannot forget to look and screen for drugs and alcohol, because that is, one of the ways that I've found that a lot of kids try to soothe themselves and find relief. Right. And so that is so important. I was going to share one statistic that says that 1 in every 5 children has a mental health issue or a mental health disorder. 1 in 5.
Mm.
And then it also shares that depression is like the number one mental health issue in children.
Oh, goodness. Ooh, I didn't know that. You know what I find in it's and we're all African American women today talking, but especially in our arena, a lot of times, depending on how you were raised, but I know that mental health was not dealt with. I mean, never. I mean, all my years of life, I never heard who would ever even consider, just get that bad child or sit them
Yeah,
down.
I'm not trying to get attention. You just
You
want
know what I'm
attention.
saying? Whatever they did, spank them, discipline them, they just were labeled as bad. And you were rotten, and you knew not to be around the bad kids, or you didn't know that these kids were hurting. And a lot of us, have seen or have been, the ones that were hurting, and it was never addressed. And so I think now with technology and just advances and stuff, even though there is some stigma to it, I find that it's so important that we take that stigma off and that we just say, you know what, the same way, even with just like how we like to minimize stuff in the African American community, a lot of people just say, you had a sugar, instead of diabetes. There's a difference,
My sugar's high.
you or we said, you have high blood pressure or hypertension, and they say, no, you know what, I just like to eat, salty and fried foods. We all right, I'm gonna die anyway. Let me just keep on eating all that stuff, so we don't really deal with it at the level that we should, in the manner that we should, until it gets to on the news, or someone's in the hospital, or Lord forbid something even worse, where now we're going to a funeral, and then while you're sitting there at the funeral, everybody's talking about, oh, you know what, your mama did have, when she was, such and such age, and so we have to deal with that, and we have to, know that there's help available, and it is okay to get help. It is okay to seek help.
Right. And I think we have to work together with different organizations in our community also to help eliminate that stigma and teach our children so that if they know of someone who's going to therapy, they don't pick on them. Right. Because that was one of the big things when I was a clinician in the school building. It's like how to get the kids into my office without other kids really knowing so they won't get, picked on. And I think it's important that we're having these conversations in our homes so that we can normalize the use of therapy as a tool.
I feel like, it needs to be as normal as medical treatment. And that's something I try to preach anywhere is, we go to our doctor annually, and if you're a woman, you go several times a year or whatever. And I think we're doing ourselves a disservice if we do not treat mental health the same way. We go through so many things in the course of a year. We lose people, we break up, we make up, we have children, we lose, all this stuff happens. And every year we need a check-in. We need we need an assessment. And one of my goals, I'd love to see that, every insurance company covers that the same way we cover our well visits. We need to cover, and we need to be able to get ourselves looked at, just assessed once a year. So that's just something that I kind of harp on all the time, because like you said, we as Black women have ignored, so many different critical markers that we have for disorders in every realm, spiritual realms, from the spiritual to the physical, academic as well. You guys have both worked in school, so y'all know how much we neglect when our kids are failing academically. So we kind of just have that historical trauma again, where we just shoulder it. We just shoulder up and keep on moving forward and get through. And the problem is that only 5% of the true you gets through. And I do a lot of work with young women. I do a lot of empowerment groups with young women. So that is one of the biggest things we do. We do an activity where we look at what the baggage is we're carrying. We actually get to go over, I love Bag Lady. I love the Erykah Badu song. So we'll look at that. and say, what are the bags you're carrying? What are the bags you've seen your auntie carrying, your mama carrying? What's the stuff she's saying all the time? And then we start getting rid of those bags. We start saying, I want 100% of me to make it through this thing, not 5%. I don't want the burdened, begrudged, wounded, black, old, bitter. I don't want her. I want the 100% empowered you. And that means dealing with your depression. That means dealing with your diabetes. And that means confronting that you might be dyslexic. I don't know.
Yes. I mean, that's peeling all the masks off and looking at yourself just raw. and it's so amazing when I think it's amazing that girls can find that space, because you might be the only person in their life who's willing to have that conversation with them. And I think that's important. Those are important conversations to have. So let me just take a pause right here to welcome our guests. And if you are here watching us, I see a few of you are here watching us. Hey, say something so I know that you're watching us, and share the video out. Hey, Catrice, I'm so glad you joined us. And my cousin Daniel's on here. My cousin Joseph is on here. I'm so glad you all joined us. And Pastor Brewington is on here, so say something, let us know, send the ladies some love. Sister Kimball is on here, let them know that this information is really, really important and we need it in our community. Nicole, thank you for being here. Hey, Aaron, Jaquetta, thanks for being here, and Wynn is still here with us. So I'm so glad that you're here. Share this out. This is really important. We're talking about suicide awareness and prevention, and we shouldn't limit this conversation to just September, right? We should be talking about this all the time. And so while I'm on this break, I'm just going to share my screen a little bit to talk about our sponsor for this month. For Team Talk Live, is being sponsored by Joseph Dillard. Well, yep, that's my husband. We have the same name. And he is a financial consultant, and he's been in financial services for over 30 years, and he does amazing work. He's even helped me to set up a 401k for my small business, and I'm so excited about that. And Joseph says, I don't sell products. I provide solutions to help individuals and families save money, decrease debt, protect their income, and become financially free. So check him out at www.xbankerblog.com and let him help you with your financial services. All right. So ladies, where do we go from here? If we have a parent or a clergy, we have a clergy on here. What do we want to tell them to look for, and how do they proceed if they realize that this teenager is more than sad, or they've been sad for more than 2 weeks? What would you say to them? What advice would you give them? We can start with Tamika.
A lot. So depending on if you're saying they've been sad for more than 2 weeks, I want you to like figure out if suicide is even on the is on the radar. And I think, you can use the QPR. I think it's question, persuade, refer. And so that's something that is important. So also what you want to look for is that rehearsed statement. When kiddos are upset, when they are screaming and yelling and ripping at the walls or whatever they do, they're saying the same thing over and over typically. She never lets me blank, or they always blah, blah, blah. Listen to that. There's something in that. It might not be accurate, but there is something to it. So, and there's definitely a nugget in that. So those are the things that I would definitely say as lay people or non-clinicians, figure out if depression or suicide is somewhere on the radar, and listen for that rehearsed statement.
Awesome. Thank you. Okay. All right. Monica, what do you say?
So, I mean, I think that's really great, Tamika, what you said, and I agree with that. I think in today's society now, every couple months somebody's shooting somebody. They're killing somebody, and then they even will turn the gun on themselves. So we really have to take this serious, whether you're a clinician or whether you're not. And so I always say, if you see something, say something. And I think that is just so important that we just inquire and just show genuine concern for that particular young person. I mean, you don't go up there and say, well, I think you're really depressed. I mean, 9 times out of 10, they're not going to listen to that. But you can say, you know what? There's some things that I've just noticed lately about you that I have some concerns about. They need someone to have an ally with, because when you get depressed, they don't feel that they have it. They feel no one's listening to them. No one really cares about them. So I do say, proceed, do something, but proceed with caution. You don't want to just say, well, let me go take you to the doctor, let me go get you assessed, because you're going to make them shut down even more, or maybe even act when they're not ready to act. They may have some residual thoughts, but then you don't want to put it on the forefront of their mind. But just like kind of you were saying earlier, Tamika, about getting a checkup, we all need to get checked sometimes. And what I find that helps a lot is, even if you can share maybe some little personal kind of general things, just to kind of, bring them into some kind of, like, they understand you, they see that you truly care, they see that you're just not all up in my business, because a teen definitely doesn't want somebody all up in their business, right? So not another adult, to do that. But if you can truly, show empathy, and of course that's something that we're trained to do, but a lot of times outside people jump to conclusions. But again, you do need to include other people. So you do need to look at the friends they're around. You do need to look at their associates. You do need to look at the extracurricular activities they're doing. You might need to look at the school caseload, because it could be too much for them at this time. And then you do need to incorporate the home. Is there something going on in the home that, behind closed doors, what's really going on? Nobody really knows that other than that child. But those are just some things that you need to kind of look at. Have they changed their appearance? Have they went from one extreme to another in some kind of way? You look for those kind of things as well. And if you even see them gravitating to maybe a different type of peer group than they were prior. So those are some things that are key. And then just their decision and problem making skills, because we didn't really talk about it. Maybe we can a little bit later, but we know that the adolescent brain hasn't fully developed yet. And so there are just some decisions that they are not equipped even fully to deal with at that teen age. And so sometimes they have responsibilities that are put on them, and they really don't know how to process them. And as adults, we're giving them things and pressures that they just truly can't handle. And so all of those are things that we need to really look at when we talk about a teen that may be having some depression issues.
I think that's really critical what you said, because there was an article in the Center for Disease Control that really brought this out, and they said that a lot of teens are suffering from depression because they're not equipped to deal with the adult problems that's being put on them. And so, again, with the trauma and all the different things that's going on in the environment, those financial stress, marital problems, relational problems, things that's going on in the home or in the school or in their general environment, those are not necessarily things that they are equipped to deal with, like you brought out, Monica, because their brain isn't developed. And they can't deal with that. And sometimes we make that mistake of including our kids in adults problems, because they might look like they're grown. They're overdeveloped. And so we don't think about, okay, their bodies might present that they're grown, but their brains are still developing. And so I think that's critical.
That's true. I remember a couple of weeks ago, I believe, on your show, you had even talked about, I'm a big Greenleaf fan. And so the trauma of, if y'all don't watch it, you need to watch it, but the trauma that, I forgot her name, that I think was her name Faith, maybe, the one that committed suicide.
Faith.
faith. So, because especially in, African American culture, if you're religious, which a lot of people are, some are not, but there could be some type of trauma. So if you've been molested, raped, or something from a young age and you never dealt with it, because that's one of those secrets that we keep, and ultimately in that story, she committed suicide because it was her uncle that was molesting her, and it wasn't dealt with. And so when I think about that, that happens so much. I really don't have, I wish I had my own statistic, but I can honestly guesstimate 6 out of 10 that I see have had some type of sexual molestation. It really truly is that high. I would honestly say 6 out of 10 that I see. And it's boys as well, so it's not just girls. And so we are seeing that they turn in on themselves because they don't know how or where to get help. And they don't even feel that maybe they'll be supported. Even sometimes they might have even said to me, if they have disclosed it, that person was, well, that's just, Uncle Bobby, he just like to, he just does it with everybody. Just kind of stay away from Uncle Bobby, whatever. Or really, we just, or, that's, you got to give some sugar to Aunt Bessie, that you just, that's what we do, And so we minimize it and they internalize it. And then so now, they go see Uncle Bobby every summer, or they're at Grandma's house or Big Mom's house where Uncle Bobby is and has access to them, every year. And so then they have to go through this cycle again of how do I protect myself this year? And then if there are siblings, then how do I make sure it's not happening to the siblings as well? And so it's just so much that, this is multifaceted. It's not just something so simple. It's really not. But I truly think that, again, even talks like this is just opening up awareness. And so I think that I appreciate you, Ann, for having us on here, because this right here can just open doors for people. I really believe that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Tamika, you look like you just burning to say
Yeah, she is just giving me so much. Both of y'all just giving us gold. It's wonderful. And you was talking about Uncle Bobby, and I said, just because I love schools and we both are from schools, it's like, and what happens when that kid shows up and sits next to you with the shoes that Uncle Bobby used to wear?
Oh, girl. Yeah, or
right.
Or somebody else has the cologne on, right?
Right. Oh yeah. Somebody got the cologne that Uncle Bobby wore. And now you don't know what's going on with this student. But you were actually dead on. So with your statistic that you gave, 6 out of 10, I want to say that it's 1 in 5. So if we're talking about European American women, the statistic is about 1 in 5 will be sexually assaulted before adulthood. For African American women, that is 3 in 5. And so if that's what you're seeing it right there. And it's kind of that trauma that's like a jack in the box. It just comes out somewhere in therapy and you're like, oh, okay, that explains it. So but some points I wanted to kind of bring up in what you guys were saying there. I don't want to jump in too much here. Is when you're dealing with, you asked about what to do if you're like a clergy or a school staff or someone. One of the things, I think one of the biggest mistakes we make is we forget that they're dealing with things with an adolescent mind. And then we remember that, well, we now as adults know how to deal with said stressor. So when the child says it to us, we almost are dismissive about it, because it's like, well, we know how to deal with that. And we don't think about the fact that they in their child mind and we in our child mind at that age could not have dealt with that, or would have had some sort of maladaptive symptom occurring in dealing with it. And so that's one of the things that I wanted to point out, is that something we have to do as any adult. When a kid addresses you and tells you about one of their stresses, you got to pause, rewind it back to when you were that age and think about, what did you need to hear at that time? What did you want someone to say? Did you want them to say, like, girl, it ain't that serious, just move on, just it's a breakup? Or did you need someone to explain to you relationships and maybe attachment and that kind of stuff? And as we are raising kids, we have to think about that. The first 12 years of a child's life, we're parenting to protect. We're parenting to protect them from the world. Somewhere in that 10th year to 18th year, we're now parenting to prepare them for the world. And so what I always say is between 10 and 15, it just gets real murky. because there are times when we need to protect them, but then there are times when we need to just fall back and let them do their thing. And so as adults, when we're addressing kids with trauma or any other mental illnesses going on, we really have to think about that. We have to think about the developmental stage. That's just important.
Right. I think the information given there, because I was talking to someone, and she was expressing that her 13-year-old is this, that, and the other, and I'm like, well, her brain is only what 156 months old. If you think about that in months, regardless of what her body looks like, her brain is just that, and it's not developed. And so there's a process, and I think sometimes as parents, and I've been guilty of this, we get caught up in that push pull and not realize that this is a natural stage of transition and them learning, and we have to help them to move to the next level of life, the next phase of life. And if we don't do that effectively, we can cause dysfunction. So it's tricky, and parents don't learn this, right? I had to go to grad school to learn this. Right? So this goes back to my point where you were saying that you need a checkup. I'm like, whether or not you're seeing symptoms, it's good to have a therapist in your back pocket so you can check in and get some help, right? What you say, Monica?
Yeah, I mean, you know what? I love that, Tamika, because I've said that, and I'm totally changing. But I was like, I think that all of us need a yearly checkup. Really, all of us do. Whether it's mental health, especially if you're dealing with people in any kind of capacity, which we are. No, seriously, because like all these killings, these shootings that are going on, which is every day now. Honestly, I have a sister that's a policeman, and I'm from Chicago, and that's murder capital right now. And then I have a brother that's a fireman, and they train initially, but after they get out of the academy, what? Nothing. I mean, seriously. And you're talking about people's lives that you're dealing with on a daily basis. And so the trauma that they see from being out there, any type of first responder, you're seeing who knows what, right? We don't even want to talk about it, but from the smallest thing up until massive amounts of deaths and fatalities. And then what do you do with all that? And that's the adult. And so just think about that if you bring that down to a child's age that's in a atmosphere of chaos and trauma and turmoil and just all these things they don't even know. And then they got the little hormones. We can't forget that. So you don't know who you like, should you like them. Here they are today. you don't know what's going on. And then you have to deal with all this inner turmoil. And so I think it's so important that children do have a safe place to go to. We all need it. That's what we do as adults, most of us. We have our, girlfriends, guy friends, colleagues that we talk to about things. But what is your child really equipped to deal with? How are they equipped to deal with that? And who do they talk to? And that's important too, because you got to look at the source. If you're talking to I'm 13, you 13, well,
Right. And you know what? That is so important. And we didn't touch on this, and maybe we'll do this at another time. But
the blind kind of leading the blind, So,
and we have to check on social media. I think the technology is messing up a little bit. But can you hear me, Monica? I think you're frozen. Can you hear me, Tamika?
I can hear you.
Okay, I think Monica's frozen. But I was getting ready to say that we have to check on social media and see what kind of stuff our children are being influenced by. That's a big red flag in a lot of cases. They have these subliminal manipulators at their access in their bedrooms, and no supervision.
Yeah.
So I think those are some of the things we can do to help also.
There's a really nifty chart out there. It's posted on one of my pages. I'll try to find it, but it has some data about different social media accounts, Instagram, Snapchat, or whatever, the different ones, Facebook. And it kind of shows what types of symptoms people are experiencing based on how much they use each one. That's so important because I know just even for me, I feel like I had a good string of Instagram suicide young ladies. It was just something I mean, it seemed like a good year or two where just things were happening on Instagram that, once you finally, of course, dug all those layers back after they have come from inpatient and made it into your office, it started with something that had to do with Instagram or got blown up on Instagram or, that's not just to name them, but whatever different social media. And so that's something, I mean, some people say I'm an overprotective parent, but I think it's very important that you can have access to those things. When I'm working with youngsters, I always talk to them about, let them know confidentiality, the limits thereof. And I say, when we get into social media, as soon as they say they've got an account, I said, does your parent know? Immediately, my next question is, does your parent know about it? And then the next one is, do they have the password? So about 50% of the kiddos' parents know about the account. They almost all look at me completely crazy when I ask if their parent has the password.
Exactly.
So,
and I think
that's something we gotta work on.
parents, we have a huge responsibility when it comes to that because we wouldn't just invite a stranger into our house and say, here, have access to my kid. But we do that with social media all the time, and we're seeing, when I was in the schools on Monday mornings, we would gear up for social media fights.
Yep.
Because it spills over inevitably to some kind of confrontation on Monday mornings.
Oh yeah.
And I think as parents, we have to really pay attention to that.
Oh
yeah. Yeah. So, ladies, this has been a really good conversation. I'm gonna check here to see if we have any questions. If you're still with us and you have questions for our licensed mental health professionals, drop them in the comment section. I'm not seeing any questions, and I'm not sure if my system is working or not. Do you all see any questions on your? I want to make sure that if there are questions, we are answering them for our guests tonight, because it's so amazing to have these clinicians here. I'm just checking this out a little bit to see if we do have questions. So let's wrap up and share what is one or two things that you would like to leave with the audience as it relates to teen suicide. Monica, you can go first.
And just for having me on, I really appreciate it. And I'm looking at the three of us, and I'm like, twists and the crochets going on today. And I said, that is, we have so much variety of beauty that we come in. And I just appreciate the opportunity to talk to both of you ladies. And I've learned so much. So Tamika, I will be using that ACEs, much more. So I appreciate that. But really, I just want everyone listening to know that help is available and you are not alone. Those two things, so many times when we're depressed, we think that, it's just overwhelming. We become hopeless because we feel that we're alone, and that we just can't handle it. A lot of times, of course, we want whatever the pain is that we're going through to stop. And that's ultimately, why they maybe get suicidal, because they just feel that there is no hope. But you are not alone. And so you find someone you can trust to talk to, whether that's, the school counselor or whether, I mean, like you said, technology, use it. Now, of course, use it wisely, but there are professionals out there. And so you can go on reputable sites. Psychology Today is a big one that pops up when you just do mental health searches. So you can find someone to talk to. Hopefully, though, the Board of Health, you might even just have to go there as a starting point, because maybe, when you're talking about mental health insurances, children don't usually have access to all of that. So I don't want to, give them something they can't do, but the Department of Public and Health is there. But just looking, if you see something that's out of character, out of alignment, again, investigate it. Don't ignore it. That would be my biggest thing. Do not ignore it, because there could be something under the surface they're brewing up, and we want to address it.
Awesome. And Tamika, before you answer, I did have a question. I couldn't see it on my computer, so I went to my cell phone. But Pastor Brewington says, has there been an increase in teen depression? If yes, any thoughts on why?
I can't give you statistics. I will say that trends in depression overall are increasing. So from just treatment wise, I would say yes. And it's just the world. Look at our world. I mean, Pastor, you know what's going on here. We're looking at some really interesting things. Our kids are being challenged to really believe and stand up for who they are and what they believe in, or to kind of fall in with the rest. And so that's a really tough spot to be in as a teenager, because you're deciding, it's just a really tough spot to be in. I see 35-year-old adults struggling with whether to stand up for what they believe in or just fall in line. So, and as things in our society are becoming more and more free, our kids are having to fight. Our kids are having to fight against a system where a lot of times people don't share the same values that we want to instill in our children. So sorry, I hope that answered your question.
Yeah, and I would say definitely there's an increase, because again, I posted a statistic on my page that says that there's an increase in suicide, especially in Black boys, and depression is one of the leading causes of suicide, and teens feeling like they don't belong. So that would also lead me to believe that yes, there's an increase in depression. And again, back to that social media thing, that is, I think, a very, very important piece to look at, of how it's feeding the mood and the self-esteem of that teenager, because those things can definitely contribute to it. I don't have the concrete answer to share statistics, but it's definitely prevalent.
I'm glad you said that about that. That's something I noticed in practice in our community maybe 7 or 8 years ago. We started having several young Black boys under the age of 12 committing suicide. And so for a lot of you probably went to school where the number one person that was committing suicide was either white men or white women, and then Black women, and then the very last were typically Black boys. So to see such a sharp incline or increase in that population does kind of signal that we probably have an overall increase in that issue, in suicidality. I kind of wanted to piggyback on what Monica was saying there. I don't have a whole lot to say, but really just suicide is always serious. Please don't, think it's just attention seeking or anything like that. But just, if you're not a clinician, sorry, I missed something.
Yeah, we lost our connection, but we're back up.
Oh, okay. Yeah, we played musical chairs. But always take it seriously. As a clinician, yes, we can talk amongst ourselves about what looks real, like a real attempt or real ideation, but don't do that if you're not a clinician, because you don't want to take the chance of losing someone. And that's kind of what I wanted to go back around to. Again, teenage depression does not necessarily look like adult depression with the sad mood. You may be looking for the loner, the kid walking alone being sad, but you just may as well be looking for the all-star top athlete who seems happy and goes all to all the parties. And even more, that's why you can't take suicide, threats or ideation as a joke or for play or attention seeking. You've got to call 1-800-273. What's the number?
Okay,
Thank you.
We're still having some internet connection. But if you are here with us still, I just want to thank you for joining us, and we'll finish our comments in the comment section. We're having internet issues, but I'm gonna sign off so we don't mess up again. Thank you, ladies. This has been a really, really good conversation. And let's not wait till next September to have this conversation again.
All right, will do.
Thank you.
I appreciate you. So if you
Take care,
drop
Jasmine.
your contact information in the comment section, let people know how to reach you. And that Tamika, that resource about the what kind of illnesses or mental health illness might present based on the social media, that would be really great.
Great. Will do.
All right. Well, thank you again for joining Teen Talk Live. Our show was sponsored by Joseph Dillard, ex-banker blog. Check him out for your financial solutions. And I'm your host, Ann Dillard. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist, and I want to invite you to join my group at Building Authentic Mother-Daughter Relationships, where we'll continue to have conversations like this. Thank you and have a good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.